from the lies. Love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the shame. I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies. Love opened my eyes. I will be silent no
Hello, I'm Janet Morena, the Executive Director of Priests for Life, and welcome to our show, Just Ask Janet. And you might be saying, hey, Janet, what's going on? Don't you come earlier to us in the day? And where's Father Frank? Well, of course, we all know, most of you do know, that Father Frank on May 11th had open heart surgery, and he's doing amazing well. I want to thank you all for the prayers. He and his medical team are convinced that Father is doing as well as he is because of you, your prayers. So keep him up. He can't wait to be back with you, and hopefully he'll be back real soon. But in the meantime, every so often he records when he's up to a little something, and we put it on a special web page we developed called fatherfrankpavone.org. You can go there. You can see all the videos he did, even the morning of surgery. He did a video outside the hospital with me. Then right before he went into surgery, he was a little groggy on anesthesia. He did another video. And then he did them, periodically through that journey of open heart surgery. And so he's a real fighter. And he said, the first words he said to me coming out of anesthesia when I was allowed in to see him and they took out the tubes, he said, this is all for the unborn. I have to get back to work. I said, okay, Father, but right now, rest easy. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks for, again, all the prayers for Father Frank. We really appreciate it. So I guess I'm a little bit of a placeholder, but once Father's back, I'll just move my program back to a little bit earlier in the evening. But joining me today is a very exciting guest, someone Father Frank and I have known for a long time. Her name is Lila Rose. She's the president and founder of Live Action, and we're going to talk to her about a lot of different things, but initially, how she got involved and developed this passion to just bring it into abortion, just like Father Frank and myself. So Lila, welcome to the program.
Hi, Janet. Thanks for having me. And so glad to hear Father Frank is on the mend. That's great news.
On the mend, exactly. And the scary thing, Lila, you've known Father for a while. So what the heart surgeon told Father was, well, your baseline of energy is going to increase after the surgery. So can you imagine that? Father Frank, we call him already the Energizer Bunny. So imagine with even more of that energy.
The more pro-life energy, the better. So that's great.
Exactly. So my response is, you pro-abort, you better watch out. Father's coming back real soon with more energy. So, but let's go back, Lila, to how you first got it, your background, just briefly, how you became so passionate about this pro-life issue.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And I spent a lot of time going down memory lane and thinking through what were the steps from a teenager to today that I took and I was involved in order to start and build Live Action, because I was writing my book, Fighting for Life, and I wanted to create something that would help be a guidebook for other people, because I think a lot of people might look at myself or even Father Frank or others and say, oh, that's great, they're a pro-life leader, but I don't know what that's what I'm supposed to do. But I would say, and I know Father Frank says this too, and you say this too, everybody has a role in the pro-life movement. So for me, I got him started Live Action as a teenager. I was 15, and it was the result of a lot of moments in my life where I felt very strongly convicted about abortion. And I felt just this burning sense of, I need to do something. I can't just sit on the sidelines when there are children, at the time, 3,000 children being killed every single day in America. And so ultimately it was the reality of what abortion was, and learning about it, and not being brainwashed by the pro-abortion talking points, but knowing this is a human life that deserves love and to live, that inspired me that I had to do something. I started calling around, Janet. There were no other pro-life groups doing youth education in San Jose, where I grew up, California. This is a city with millions of people in the larger Bay Area, and there was nothing. And so I thought, I guess I need to start something. And so that was the inspiration for Live Action.
Wow. And of course, I know you did, get a hold of Father Frank in those early days. I remember distinctly you came out to New York, where our headquarters used to be, for a visit to our office. So tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I think I was 19 at the time. So when I started Live Action as a high school student, we were doing pro-life presentations to other young people. And that took a lot of determination and grit to figure out, to get permission to do that from pastors, and going to churches and working on that. So I started by studying everything I could about the issue. I came across Priests for Life, of course, and their resources, a lot of other national groups that were really helpful to me, just starting out and having no pro-life connections. And then I got to UCLA. And when I was a student there, I started doing undercover reporting of abortion clinics. And that's how I think I first got in touch with Priests for Life, because one way or another, whether I was doing an interview with Father Frank, or somehow we got connected through the larger pro-life national movement, because now Live Action was no longer just a youth organization in Northern California. It had become a national investigative reporting group. And I was spearheading that, as a college student. So somehow I end up, at Priests for Life. I think Father Frank, I connected with him actually through Greg Cunningham, if I remember correctly, with the Center for Bioethical Reform, another phenomenal pro-life group. And Greg and Frank have been friends for decades and have done amazing work in the pro-life movement, Greg and Father Frank. And so I end up going out there and showed Father Frank, at the time I'm 19, I had stars in my eyes about all that was possible. So much is possible in the pro-life movement to achieve victory. We can abolish abortion. We can change our culture. So I had all these ideas for how I could contribute to that work. I was already doing stuff at UCLA and in my high school group before that. So I remember sitting down with Father Frank, and it was very encouraging. He was just, looking at my plans and giving them the thumbs up ultimately. And I think I also met with Dr. Alveda King at the time, and I remember her telling me always to put Jesus first, which was great advice, and certainly advice that has meant the most over the years. But it was great to just be able to talk with, as a young activist, a nationally established group who had already done so much, Priests for Life, and to just have the opportunity to brainstorm with Father Frank. And I so appreciate him taking time for me as a young activist, because that's just the future. And now for myself, now that I'm more established, Live Action has been built up, I look at all the other young activists out there and I say, we got to build them up. We have to, we need more people in this movement. And it's exciting to see that many more people are joining the movement.
That's right. Well, I can think back to, Father Frank was my parish priest when he was ordained by Cardinal O'Connor in 1988, came to my parish. That's how I got connected with Father. And in 1993, he became the first full-time national director of Priests for Life. And he started kind of like you, Lila, with nothing, absolutely nothing, but a burning desire to bring an end to abortion. And I always remember him telling me, oh, well, I'm just going to go visit pro-life leaders and see how I can help them. And I remember one of the first pro-life leaders he went to visit was Joe Scheidler up in Chicago. And he said, well, Mr. Scheidler, what can I do as the head of Priests for Life to help you? And I said, Father, what are you going to do if he asks for something big and we can't do it? He said, don't worry. God has lots of money, like Mother Teresa said, and it'll all happen. And Father, I'm telling you, kind of like you in a way, Lila, always went out full steam ahead, lots of faith, and said, we're going to get the job done. And Father Frank still says, we're not just here to fight abortion. We're here to end it. We're going to bring an end to abortion in our lifetime. And he has that same spirit like you and I do, that, yeah, we're going to get the job done. But, huh?
I was going to say, I think that's so important, that vision that Father Frank's always had, and it's coming true. I mean, abortions have declined in the last decade, unprecedented pro-life legislation in the last 2 years. What's happening at the Supreme Court is going to be huge. So I think now more than ever, anyone listening, anyone already interested, let's get in the fight together. If we take small everyday actions for life, we can change this country. We can end abortion. It is possible.
Yeah. Well, I always tell people, Lila, that, you have a job to do within what I call your circle of influence, the people you come in contact with, to have those discussions, because I think most times when people think about the pro-life movement or they think about the topic of abortion, they don't know a lot about it. They just hear a bunch of political rhetoric bouncing around. But when you take that time to explain to people that, oh, do you realize that abortion is legal through all 9 months of pregnancy? Do you know how many people, Lila, still that little fact, it escapes them, doesn't it?
Yes, and not just that fact, but facts about fetal development. The heart is beating at 3.5 weeks. When people find out about the heartbeat of the child, most Americans actually want abortions to be banned after the heartbeat can be detected. So most Americans don't even realize that they're against virtually all abortions when they think about it in the context of the baby's heart is beating for every abortion, because that happens at just 3.5 weeks, virtually every abortion. So I think it's really powerful to see what education can do. And that's why Live Action, myself, I know Priests for Life as well, we focus so much on education, because people have just been brainwashed and there's just misinformation everywhere. But when they're given the opportunity to see some of these facts, it can be just life-changing.
Right. Well, you mentioned Greg Cunningham from the Center for Bioethical Reform. And in fact, Father Frank and I have known Greg, oh my gosh, for almost 30 years. It gets scary when we start thinking about the time frame here. And Father, by the way, is on their board. But Greg has come out, and you've probably seen because we're talking about the early stages of development. Have you seen, he calls them these new NASA photos of the baby, unborn child? They are amazing. And we started a whole new campaign using Greg's pictures, of course, with his permission, called My Heart Beats Just Like Yours. And it's the baby now talking. It has all those fetal development facts, but it's the baby talking directly to you. And we're finding it's getting a great reaction because, like you just said, Lila, people don't realize that in those first few weeks, that baby's heart beats millions and millions of time in just those first few weeks. And most people, and unfortunately, and I deal with, of course, the aftermath with the women who've had abortions through Silent No More. And so many of them have said, like, we were lied to in the abortion clinic. As you know, if they do an ultrasound in the abortion clinic, they don't let the woman see the ultrasound. That's turned away. And it's really a search and destroy mission. It's just so they can see how far along is that baby, so that they can kill it. And the other thing they don't do is the Doppler, which will give them the heartbeat, is shut off, so they don't hear that. So, when you talk about, reproductive health and women have a right to know, the abortion industry pales in their way of helping women. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it definitely is true. I mean, one of the investigations Live Action did was to review the so-called other services that Planned Parenthood says they provide. I mean, Planned Parenthood talks about being pro-choice for women's health care. It's a big lie. They're the biggest abortion chain, and that's their focus. So we actually called dozens and dozens of Planned Parenthoods and showed how they don't provide any prenatal care. No, I mean, the ultrasound machines, which can be used for prenatal care, are not used to help protect lives. They're used to, like you said, be a search and destroy mission for children, to kill them through an abortion. And they don't provide holistic care for women. They don't do any mammograms. Their cancer screenings have declined in the last decade or two. And they don't actually provide parenting support or adoption support. They just do abortions. And those numbers have gone up every year, virtually every year in the last decade. So when people learn that, I think a lot of them are surprised, because Planned Parenthood presents itself as something totally different. And the reality is their focus is abortion. And that's what the abortion industry is about. It's about abortion. It's not about helping women.
Right. Well, what you said that you've done with the investigative reporting, I think the biggest farce with the Planned Parenthoods is the mammography scam. That they say, oh, well, we're into women's health, and oh yeah, mammography. Yeah, show me one Planned Parenthood clinic that has the mammogram machine there. Zero. And of course, what we know what they'll do is they'll just give you a referral slip and send you to some other place to get your mammo. So the concept that they fool, all the politicians with their rhetoric about all the reproductive health that they give women is so false. It's insane.
Well, and that's even true with the prenatal care, because they say, oh, we do 6,000 prenatal services a year or whatever. And they're actually typically referring those out, or they're counting, maybe handing out vitamins as a prenatal service. And it's just, it's a real big sham in a bid to win public support. And then they get a ton of public support. I mean, they get, as you know, $500 million a year from taxpayers. So we are paying Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion chain, 1.6 million taxpayer dollars a day. And we are part of their bloodshed. Our money is paying for their bloodshed. And it is just one of the greatest horrific tragedies in our society today that this is still permitted. And it's one of the many things we have to work to end. And thankfully, there's progress being made to expose this, but we need real strong political action to end it, completely end taxpayer funding of abortion providers, as well as to, of course, abolish abortion completely and make sure that children are protected.
That's right. And of course, another big sham of theirs is the fact, excuse me, that, well, first of all, there's some good news people should know. There's a fraction of the abortion clinics. I think when I first got in the movement, there was over 3,000 abortion clinics nationwide, and that's gone down to, I think we're up to about 700. That's it, nationwide. So there's been a big decline. But the other big joke right now is it's the cost of a surgical abortion, hasn't gone up in the past decade or so. I can remember even calling around and getting pricing. And then you look at now their new big push, as you know, is what they call the medical abortion pill, which is, RU486 abortion pill. And they're charging almost the same price for the abortion pill as surgical abortion, which of course, this new abortion pill for them is a cash cow, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't need to with chemical abortion or RU486. Women are basically sent, or girls, these life-ending lethal drugs, these pills in the mail. And they might do like a teleconference with a nurse or somebody, but there's no checkup, there's no physical exam, there's no ultrasound. And the reason that's so important for the woman's health is because about 1%, almost 1% of pregnancies can be ectopic pregnancies. That means they're not intrauterine, they're external to the uterus. They might be in the tube, the woman's tube, the baby attaches there, or somewhere in her abdomen. And these can be life-threatening for the mother. They can kill her. And they're a hostile environment for the baby. The baby will die in that hostile environment because it's not the womb. And in this situation, the symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy can look very much like the same symptoms or consequences associated with taking the abortion pill. So if a woman takes the abortion pill, starts the regimen with an ectopic pregnancy, she'll think she's having an abortion, but she's actually still has an ectopic pregnancy in her that can be life-ending. And without proper ultrasound to determine where the baby is and proper medical checkups, it can be life-threatening for her. So this is just one aspect of how reckless the abortion industry is. They don't care about women's health and making sure women are okay. They just want to sell abortion. And for them, shipping you an abortion via the mail in a pill form is cheaper and easier. And there's a better margin for me as an abortionist than having to have a brick and mortar clinic where you have to walk in and I do this whole surgery. So that is just one other horrible aspect of how the abortion industry is so focused on killing children and profiting. They don't care about women's health. And it's so sad, Janet, as you know, our current administration, the so-called Catholic Joe Biden, President Biden, who has he's trying to make his brand being Catholic. And we know what it means to be Catholic. It means to be 100% pro-life, pro-children. And he not only is trying to expand abortion beyond what we've ever seen under an administration, he's so pro-abortion, President Biden, but he's the one, his FDA is the one lifting the standards so that the chemical abortion pill can just be sent through the mail. If there's an abuser ordering it for this abuse victim, send it to the abuser. If this is a woman with an ectopic pregnancy, send it to her. There's no careful support for that girl or that woman. There's no medical review in person in a clinic to find out what's going on. And this is what the Biden administration is doing.
I know, and that's why everybody should be really making a big stink about this. Absolutely. And of course, like you just said, President Biden tries to be such a wonderful Catholic when, I mean, being 100% pro-abortion is not what we call being a faithful practicing Catholic, which brings me to another quick question. I know when we first met you, Father Frank and I, you were not Catholic. You had a little bit of a journey into the Catholic Church, didn't you?
I did. And I talk about this in Fighting for Life because it was one of the sort of principles of even learning how to be a pro-life leader was really wrestling with and diving into my faith, because you can be atheist or agnostic in any religion and be pro-life, of course, and be anti-abortion. But to really understand the richness of what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God, and to believe that, to understand the church's teachings on sexuality. When I started to study these things, I was starting to study Christianity, and I looked at what the Catholic Church taught. It was so beautiful. It was so integrated. It made so much sense. It connected with logic and science. And when I was a student at UCLA, and I first, I think, really encountered Catholics who were living their faith. And there was this women's center near my school that I ended up getting connected with. And I remember going to Mass there. I wasn't Catholic yet, I was Protestant, but just seeing the reverence for the Eucharist and that they really believed this was Jesus's body, blood, soul, and divinity. I was just really taken by that. And it made me want to explore it more. I studied it. I came to believe this is Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. And once you start to believe that as a non-Catholic, you want to be Catholic. You want to be able to receive Jesus in the Eucharist. And so shortly afterwards, as a college, I think a sophomore, I entered the Catholic Church.
And I think, too, you had a little bit of contact with Father Frank, asking him some questions, too, right?
Yes. I mean, the very fact that there was this ministry that was pro-life, that was part of the church, and that the church has stood for life without ever flinching. I mean, that's just one of the many beauties of the church, the richnesses of the church. And Father Frank, of course, is living that in his passionate pro-life advocacy. And we need more. We need more of that.
So now I want to draw to everyone's attention to this great book that you did write, Fighting for Life. What kind of inspired you to write this book?
Well, there were a number of things. I had been, for years, I've talked to other young people, but people of all ages in the movement, who say, how did you do it? How did you start Live Action? How do you have the courage, to stand up? And I wanted to make all the lessons I've learned accessible to other people so they can find the courage, the inspiration, and the practical tools to stand up and fight, to get in the pro-life fight. I think sometimes we feel overwhelmed by the problem being so big. And we think, if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a student, you think, well, what can I possibly do? And the message of Fighting for Life is, you were born. If you're listening to this, you were born at a particular time, this particular time in human history, for a reason. And God has a particular plan to use your gifts and even your struggles and your wounds for good, to help make this world better. And if we are willing to receive that call and stand up and fight for the lives of others, fight for what matters the most, then our lives are changed. We become changed and transformed. And so a lot of Fighting for Life is the story of my own transformation. I mean, I'm still learning every day, but overcoming some of my own wounds and struggles in the fight for life, and the practical tools, the roadmap for how somebody can start, no matter what their background is, no matter what their fears are, they can get started today and make a difference for life.
Well, I want to remind you, brothers and sisters, this is a great book to read. Father Frank and I both have copies, and we're delving into it. And you can get your copy on Amazon. It's the best place to order it. And when you think about it, Lila, right now schools are letting out, people are graduating, they got a little time on their hands in the summer. I think this is a great summer reading book. I highly recommend it because, like you just said, Lila, we need everybody in the movement, meaning doing something to bring an end to abortion. Because, if everyone, I always say it, Lila, if everyone who claims and professes belief in Jesus Christ would stand up and say, we will not tolerate abortion, we're going to bring an end to it, this would be a done deal. We would be over, wouldn't we? And it's the fact that believers are just sitting silent. Believers are kind of sitting like couch potatoes. Believers are just feeling like you just said, oh, the problem is so big. Oh, no. The problem is not so big if we all get involved. So the Fighting for Life, I highly recommend this book to you, and order it today while we're talking. Amazon.com. And if you're on Amazon Smile, by the way, I know Priest for Life, and I don't know if you do this, Lila, you can designate your organization to get a donation from Amazon, believe it or not. Because if you don't designate your organization, they give money to Planned Parenthood and other groups, what other people designate. So at Priest for Life, we participate in what's called Amazon Smile. So you might want to know about that. That's another good fundraising thing. So brothers and sisters, Fighting for Life, a great summer read. Parents, you got young people at home, get them a copy. Encourage your kids to read this book because we need more young people to get involved and take leadership in this movement, because all of us rowing that boat together, we will get to the finish line and we will bring an end to abortion in our lifetime. Trust me. So Lila, thank you for joining me today on the program. I really appreciate, I know, let everyone know that you have one child born and one unborn. Tell everyone quickly when the baby is due.
And November, and yeah, we're thrilled, and it's all part of the fight for life. If you're listening, you're a parent or you're newlywed or you're engaged, vocation, finding, discovering, living your vocation, that's the way to build a pro-life America and a culture of life. So I'm very blessed to be a part of that, and please pray for me and my family.
Okay, will do. Again, thank you, Lila, for joining me on the program today. God bless. Well, brothers and sisters, like Lila and I said, very spirited conversation. But remember, brothers and sisters, there are some abortion only you can stop, some lives only you can save. Join me again next time on Just Ask Janet. God bless.